Okay, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to shift a boat into gear properly. So it might seem simple, but improper shifting really can damage your transmission and the engine. And those are arguably the biggest expenses that you can run into on a boat. So stick with us as we walk you through the steps of how to shift smoothly. Before we dive in, if you want to master the art of operating a boat, check out NauticEd's Maneuvering Under Power course. That's going to be primarily more for sailboats. That's going to be in the show notes. And then also in there is going to be the NauticEd Large Skipper Powerboat course, which also covers all of these subjects. It's just included in it. Now, let's understand the basics of boat gears. There's forward, neutral, reverse. Very easy, right? It's not like a car where there's like first gear, second gear, third, fourth, fifth. It's just forward, neutral, reverse. Now, on some of the modern power boats, the throttle lever and the gear are all in one. So basically, if you move the lever forward, it will engage into forward. And depending how far you move that forward is how much throttle you're adding to it. On some sailboats, there's a gear shifter and then there's the throttle, two separate things. Older power boats, that's also the same case there. Now, the thing about it, boats don't have clutches like cars, but it's not like a whole lot of people know how to use a standard car these days. So when you engage a gear on a boat, it engages directly. So it's very important for smooth and deliberate movements to avoid damage. Now, let's do a step-by-step guide. When you're at the dock and you're getting the engine going, you always want to start the engine while it's in neutral, right? You don't want to be starting it with it in forward or reverse. Some boats, they have it that there's like a kill switch, so you can't even do that. So just always make sure that it's in neutral. Once you start the engine, let the engine warm up for a little bit. You don't want to quickly use the engine. Just let it warm up, especially if it's been, long periods of inactivity. So cold engines generally can do rough shifting or stalling when they're under load. When you're actually shifting, right, you want to shift quickly but smoothly. So if you want to go in forward, you push the throttle forward in one steady, purposeful motion. Avoid any abrupt jerks. So that's going to just stop you from lurching forward. If you want to go into reverse, right, you always go neutral, pause for a second, and then you can bring it into reverse. And again, steady motion, right? Very deliberate. You don't want to be hesitant. When you shift the gear of a boat, you generally hear a click. It's like an audible click sound. On my boat, right, if I go and I put it in forward, you hear like a clunk sound. So you know that it's engaged. Off tangent here, my boat had a transmission problem a while back. And so when I would go to put it into gear, it would feel like it was completely like free flowing. Like it didn't have any resistance and it didn't make a clunk sound or click. It just freely moved. Ended up being the transmission was just so worn. The engine had 6,000 hours on it. So always be listening for the click. Once you have engaged the boat into gear, right, you want to slowly increase the throttle. Very smooth. You don't want a rapid throttle change that can cause cavitation where the propeller spins, really fast and creates like a pocket of air. Now, some tips to, help you with this smooth gear shifting. You want to avoid shifting at high RPMs. You don't want to have the throttle up where you're, the engine's kind of revving and then you start changing gears, because as soon as you do that, it's going to grind the transmission. So always have the RPMs at idle before you shift. When you're going from forward to reverse, always pause in neutral, just a brief pause to allow the engine to stabilize. Now, these are some of the common mistakes that people run into when they're shifting. They shift too slowly. So if you're hesitating as you're changing gears, that is just going to cause grinding or slipping. So you want to shift decisively. Another thing is failing to reduce speed. So always return to idle before you shift into reverse, neutral, or forward to avoid any damage. Overusing reverse, right? So use reverse sparingly for short maneuvers like docking or stopping. Don't use it excessively. So these are some of the insights on how to properly shift a boat's gears. If you are looking to master these skills, both NauticEd's courses, the Maneuvering Under Power course for sailboats and the Large Skipper Powerboat course, will be in the show notes for this episode.